got another great segment and discussion, kind of a C-suite, our C-suite insider conversations with David Dann. And we had a conversation about what David really believes is the future of what he's doing. And I just want to have a conversation about that as it relates to healthcare informatics. So David, glad to see you again, brother. And tell me about what your thoughts are around that healthcare informatics and what you want to do, and why you think it's important for you as a company, but also for the healthcare industry and C-suites of health systems and people to pay attention to.
Yeah, what we were talking about is the shift in healthcare from fee-for-service to value-based reimbursement. And what I was explaining, that Bill Dunbar and Associates was started in '88, and our focus really is always on fee-for-service and dealing with the evaluation of management, procedure, capture, and all that. But when the Affordable Care Act passed, we sat down and said, okay, how do we reposition our company to be viable 10, 20, 30 years from now? And the industry is shifting very rapidly towards risk-based or value-based reimbursement. So we started a company called BDA Health Informatics. We employed a healthcare informaticist to work with some of the top pop health companies in the nation. And he brought his expertise to build what we call an informed care solution suite. And basically what we were talking about, Niels, is that I felt, and I still do, the future of Bill Dunbar and Associates is how it positions itself as a leader in value-based reimbursement and the education associated with it. Because we are moving now to an environment where everybody's going to be reimbursed ultimately on how well they capture risk. And that's what we're talking about, is everything's going to be risk adjusted. And the only way to make money in a risk adjusted environment is to optimize your diagnosis, capture, and the accuracy of that. So what we did to address that was create a software that can review the healthcare claims and the feeds from the various payers, whether it's CMS or an ACO, load that in, and then take that data by specialty, by practitioner, to the patient level, so that we are capturing everything at that level and training that practitioner to make certain that they're capturing all morbidities and comorbidities associated with managing that patient's care. And in a risk-adjusted world, that will make or break who's successful and who isn't successful. And that's really where our focus will be from now through the next decade, is making certain that we're a leader in offering products that are going to address a risk-adjusted environment and how systems are compensated on that. So everybody's a bit in a learning experience, a bit of a learning curve on that. We feel like we were out ahead of that one, and that's really what I was telling you earlier in our conversation, is where we want to position ourselves is certainly still be an expert in fee-for-service. I have no idea if it's going to be around 5 years, 10 years, or more, but I'm confident that the value-based reimbursement side is going to keep growing and growing, and that's really where we've positioned our company.
So, David, on the have you had conversations with hospital CEOs about this? I mean, how did that come about? And I mean, what are they worried about? And what do you do to make them feel better? That there is it's not doom and gloom. It's going to be okay, and you're here to help, right?
I know in another one of our conversations, we were talking about the fact that most practices lose money, and under the value-based environment, they will lose more money if they're not properly risk adjusted. So most people want what's called a risk adjustment factor. We call them RAFs. You want an RAF of greater than 1. I've talked to many CEOs and said, David, we could use your help because our RAF is about 0.8. One of the things that our tool does is, at the end of the day, once it's calculated what HCCs are missing, it will then calculate what's called maximum financial impact. And it takes the algorithms used by CMS and the ACOs, and it will calculate, if you were running at a 1.0, here's how much money's on the table. And so it literally is there in a report from to see, hey, we need to get after this. This is affecting our bottom line. You threw out the word earlier. That's found money. It's incremental revenue. And again, it's really just a matter of helping them understand what you need to do in your practice and you as a practitioner to address not only the thing the person presented for. I came in and I just identified I have a certain medical condition, but I may have 3 or 4 other comorbidities. And if you're not documenting those, then your risk adjustment factor will not be reflected in the annual number that you're given by CMS for that, or whatever scoring system ACO is using. So that's really where we see the future, and that's really where we positioned BDA.
Yeah. Now, so one of the interesting things that I know that you guys do, or I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that if someone wants to engage you, you'll go in and do an audit at no cost.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
if you find stuff, then engage you and, reap the benefits, I guess, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly how it works. I was a customer twice of Bill Dunbar's before I became an owner in the company. And
Oh, really? So it's kind of like the hair club for men. I use that term a lot, and we like this so much. You bought
I
the
bought
company. Awesome.
Yeah. Call me Victor Cayenne. But yeah, it's really true is that when you've experienced the pain on the other side, you then say, okay, I think I have a solution for that pain. So what we've really done is address that via the free analysis. So on the fee-for-service side, we do a certain type of analysis. Things like, here's how much money is on the table by doctor, by type. On the what we call the hierarchical condition coding side, HCCs, we will look at a claim feed of, say, 24-month trail. We can get that from their IT people, transfer all, legally and compliantly on FTP and HIPAA compliant. We'll then come back with that report and show them all the things I just described, and that it's their data, their results, what your maximum financial impact is. And then if you engage us, then that tool becomes available to you. We do it on whatever cycle you want on refreshing the data. Some people want it monthly, some people want it quarterly, some even a longer period. Most people quarterly, because that gives you time to load old data in. And then you can continually looking at your maximum financial impact and track progress. So by the time you get to having that RAF factor recalculated, you've given it your best shot at optimizing it for the upcoming year. So that's really where population health is going, and where we feel that we're a niche player on that, and we can be very, very specific. The difference between us and some of the electronic products out there, Niels, is we have not only the electronic product, but we consider it an end-to-end solution. So not only do we provide the data and the pop health people can see, but then we literally go in and train on a proactive basis with their practitioners to make certain that they understand what they need to do, and they're not getting anecdotal information from pop health saying, well, hey, here's a report here that says you're leaving all these on, you're not coding for those. And the doctor's looking at it and saying, well, how do you do that? Because one HCC can have 10, 20, 30 diagnosis codes tied to it.
Right.
So we have crosswalks and everything built in that do that. We get too much in the weeds, but essentially you walk them through that whole that tree.
Let me ask you something. You and I, we sign the front of the checks, right? And we decide, we're going to put our money in our trust. Have you ever gone into and visit with a client and figured out that they're doing everything right and you can't help them?
Yeah.
Has that ever happened?
Yeah, it happens on occasion.
What do you do? You convert them? You hire them, or what do you do?
we tell them don't compete with us. No, we will have that. We've had analyses we've done for people more on the fee for service side, where they're doing pretty much everything right, and we'll say, there are 2 or 3 things that you might consider. Quick anecdote: we were at one of some conference where we had a little exhibit up, and somebody walked up to me and my COO and said, "Hey, really appreciate that preliminary analysis that you guys gave us. You said we're doing great, but those 2 or 3 things you gave us made us an extra $500,000." So sometimes even when you think you can't help them, there's still always something else there.
Well, I mean, you never know, right? I mean,
You don't.
that person may go somewhere else and they just need boots on the ground to go and execute. And that would be you right off the bat, right?
Yeah,
And,
you run your company like we do. At the end of the day, it's about integrity. And I was taught early on, if you do the right thing, things usually work out pretty well for you.
yeah.
And so that's how we look. That's how we approach the business. Is we offer that, and we may or may not have that person become a client of BDA, but we know we provide them useful information that they can use with or without us.
Let me ask you, I mean, when you go in and help people find that kind of money and help them like that, and you're dealing with obviously this decision maker,
Yeah.
Tell me about the relationship you end up with, with that C-suite or those people that you work with. I mean, how much of that is repeat business? I mean, do they call you for no reason now? I mean, or just for advice or contacts or connections, even if it's not direct business with you? I mean, what happens to those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's most gratifying. Almost all of our accounts, I a friendship or a relationship with the CFO, sometimes the CEO, and they all move around. And sometimes they'll call us and say, "I don't really need you for this, but could you help guide me to that, or do you have an answer for this?" And a lot of them have sent us referrals of friends. And they've gone somewhere else and said, "Hey, you need to talk to David, Dan, and BDA because they did a great job for us." So I think it's the trust level. We have one that recently is merging into a larger system. The CFO and I were talking, and he said, "Well, I'm working really hard to get you in. I don't want to lose this contract. I'm hoping that they'll use you in the system." And that's cool when that happens. And we may not, the system may or may not engage us, but the bottom line is you kind of end up with friends for life. With LinkedIn and stuff, we stay in touch with each other. I've got a lot of retired CEOs that have maintained contact with us, so they may run into a friend and that's taking a job, or they may have somebody that's looking for a job. And we do a lot of that kind of networking as well. When somebody that we know who's been a friend that was a client or not, but a lot of ex-clients have moved around. We've linked them into our network of people we know, as I know you have one, and just did our best just to help people. So I think, and I know you've probably done the same thing, one of the most gratifying things you'll ever do is link somebody up where you've helped them with a career change and it worked out for them. So that's kind of one of the byproducts of doing this that makes it fun to come back in the morning. Is that if you're helping people, that makes it all worthwhile. The rest of it's kind of gravy, but at the end of the day, helping people is the fun part of it.
Well, that's how you and I became friends, right? Because of John, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So any parting thoughts on recommendations? If I'm a decision maker in a hospital or health system or a large group or a physician, and what would you recommend they need to start thinking about as it relates to the future of reimbursement right now? Where should they start?
Well, reality is they need to find out if they're already there, how do they compare against what should be an expected level of service? How do they compare as far as ACC capture? So whether they engage us or someone else, they need to know that. That's their livelihood. So to the extent that they can figure out a way to calculate what is going on within their practice, and are they doing a good job or a bad job as far as medical documentation and the revenue capture that goes along with it, that is really critical because it's the lifeblood of it. That's really what will make or break you um, on the financial success.
Right.
You know, I was talking to a practice administrator last night. She's getting ready to take our proposal to her board, and they were a critical access hospital, and she said, this won't impact our cost-based business. And I said, well, how much of it's commercial? It's about 50%. I said, well, 50% of your business can be 10 to 15% better then. So, it's really kind of having people look at what the potential is, and then look for a solution. We're not the only game in town, and we know that. Hopefully, we feel we're one of the best, but at the end of the day, they have to address that. They have to address the financial aspects of managing healthcare, whether they're the practitioner or whether they're in a management role.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Your job is to go out and help identify targets of opportunity to mitigate risk, right? Financial risk.
Yep.
And you actually put your money where your mouth is, not just with the work that you do, from my experience anyway, but you also, this whole new world of healthcare informatics. You're the, you're itching that entrepreneurial spirit again, right? And
Yep.
in launching, investing, hiring people to go become the best at that to help people, right?
Yeah, that's the fun part of being an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. As I often say, anybody that's met a payroll can give me advice. Anybody that hasn't probably can't.
I've never heard that. I'll borrow that. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's really about risk and reward, and it's fun, and because you get to groom people, you get to shape people's careers, and introduce them to things, and they become experts, and you sit back and marvel at their knowledge. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of at that point in my career right now, Niels, where I kind of get to sit back in my chair and say, okay, I set the table for you. You guys go do it. And it's fun to see them do it.
Well, let's just talk about the David Dan story real quick. I mean, how did you get into this? What was your glide path to become CEO of your own company now for many years now? And, but why this industry? What was, what was your alternative? Doctor, lawyer,
yeah, it's
bus
funny.
driver?
Yeah, I was the Mr. Scholarship guy and all that thing. And my mother, who recently has departed, as you know, wanted a doctor. And I wasn't able to quite do that for her. It wasn't the best fit for me, but I loved healthcare. And I always had worked at the hospital in our little town. And I loved just the environment and the buzz. And there's something really cool, I think, about a hospital environment. And so I'd been around it my whole life. And one of my fraternity brothers had gone into a program that was offered through the IU School of Medicine. It was a master's in healthcare administration program. And I'd finished a biological science business minor, biological science major and business minor. And it was kind of a perfect fit of those two things, because you got it from a medical microbiology standpoint, a chemistry point of view, but the business side kind of had you see both sides of it. So that was my pathway. And first job was running long-term care. I skilled nursing facility, and I actually converted a hospital to a skilled nursing facility in Kissimmee, Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did that. I'm not going to tell you the date, but I did that when I think I was 27. And that was fun. And then came back in acquisition development for a proprietary hospital, and ended up in a hospital marketing department somehow. And then ran clinics for the hospital system, and ultimately worked for a company where I was in, I think, 17 states with 31 different practices that we were running. And so it gave me insight that was very useful. During that, I had hired Bill Dunbar to help us with documentation and coding, because I didn't even know what a charge master was. They didn't hardly use that term anymore. And he helped us do that. And we made $1 million more the next year because of it. Didn't do anything different, just cleaned up the charge master. And I hired him at another place, and I was looking to make a change. He said, "Why don't you come be my business partner? Let's go ahead and take this thing national." So we did, and we've been in 43 states and countless practices. I lost track at this point, but that was the pathway, and it was some of it was by accident, some of it was on purpose, but it just kind of ultimately led me into the financial side of healthcare and the coding side of it specifically, and how that can make or break an operation. And having lived it on the provider side, then becoming the consultant, that was the transition. So all your viewers will be asleep by now, but that's basically
no. I think people like to hear stories, because you can, for some it's hope when you're young, like, hey, I could do that too. I could be a David Dan, whatever my background was, or I'm on the same pathway, and I can see that I can have a curve in the road. I can either go left or I can go right, I think stories are important for people, and we want to share stories, not just to physicians. But even that part, we have as you know, we have a business for transitioning military personnel and veterans and their career changes and going from active duty to civilian and those kinds of things. I think we'll share this story over there as well.
Thank you.
So
it's a fun industry, and my father was an entrepreneur. He died when I was 16, but what you learn early on is, those guys took some risks, and look what they built. And so, I think that's the one thing I always tell people like my son and others is, you don't learn anything if you don't fail, and you're not going to win anything if you don't take risks.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to take a risk, and usually it'll work out for you.
And just also though, fall forward.
Yes, fall forward.
A lot of us have had to do that.
Yeah.
I think there's also a misconception about entrepreneurs and the risk.
Yeah.
I think that, those, like you said earlier, those who have never stayed awake at night worrying about a payroll, don't give me advice, on that side of it. But I think there's a misconception by the ever taken that step and those risks to start their own or take their, it actually happen, not just, 10 years later say, oh, I thought about that. Well, you didn't do anything about it, but I think we have to understand and be able to take a calculated risk, right? I mean, we may mortgage our home, but we know we have an exit, and our sense of risk has been meticulously calculated. I'm not going to risk my family to do it, but we're not throwing, we're not taking a death risk here necessarily, right? With what we do. And I think the people that survive are the ones that think about it a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, David, for sharing your insider information. We're going to share this to our physicians in the MedCV network. We've got a couple 100,000 there that they'll get a little tip out of this, I'm sure, or inspiration, or even some tip to tell their teenage son or daughter, as they leap out into the world of taking risk. And then to C-suite as well. I think there's some it'll jog some memories of some instances where they've said, oh yeah, maybe I made a good decision by getting somebody like, David in to help me out, or I'm in that position now. Maybe I should call David and his team to come in and help. And the same with physicians, and I think if a physician sees this, it's important for them they get some inside information about what the administrator thinks like, what is the business mind of this, and what are the good parts of what they're trying to do. The mission is about serving a community, and that community is not just the patients, but also the people that are on your team, and making sure that there's a paycheck next time, right? So that we can help others. And I think I've shared this with you, but I remember I worked for a couple of Catholic organizations in my past. And I remember as a young 26-year-old, she was probably 80 years old, an 80-year-old sister. And she was probably, I don't think she was taller than 5 foot tall, but she looked at me and she said, "Niels, no margin, no mission." And I've kept that, and I've shared that for many, many years with people.
We used to hear the same thing from the sister running St. Vincent's here in Indianapolis. So that was a mantra.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Those sisters, man, they know how to make some money and take care of people at the same time. So
they do.
All right. Well, thanks again, David. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, thanks.